Good afternoon, everybody, here on a Monday, a game week Monday, the preseason opener 5 days away this Saturday down in Jacksonville. The first time to see the 2021 Cleveland Browns. Nathan Zegura along with Jason Gibbs. Beau Bishop visiting my hometown out in Montana, my home state out on the Ponderosa. And he will be back with us when he returns from this lovely trip with the fam. And so very excited to be with you. Excited about game week. Our OBM, Ohio Business Machine Hot Topics. Remember, OBM is the preferred copier provider of the Cleveland Browns. With all the X's and O's for your office, call 216-485-2000 or visit ohiobusinessmachines.com today. And I just want to start with yesterday, and then we'll get a little bit of the Hall of Fame, some of the festivities I got to participate in and just see for the first time in my life. But we'll start with yesterday. Number one, it was Goosebump City. It was electric seeing you, the best fans in all of professional sport, out there at our stadium once again for the first time since 2019 to see that many people congregated for a Cleveland Browns event. Joe Thomas, the Hoff, was joking. There are more people here than there were at points in the 2017 season. It was just great. And Gibbe, when Myles Garrett ran out on the field and you heard that ovation, everybody stayed through the weather delay, 45 minutes or so with weather and electrical storms. You stayed through it. And Myles ran out, got the crowd kind of pumped up. And I'm getting them right now. Zoom in. You got goosebumps here. It meant so much. And I go back to it, and, you and I think it was this week that we were talking with Jim, and I said, his iconic call, the only thing that's missing is all of you. And I said, had you thought about that? And he said, no, it just kind of came out in the moment, which is that spontaneous greatness. That's what Jim Donovan does. But you felt how special. This was for a practice. We're talking about practice. How special this is going to be for a game. September the 19th, the home opener. It is going to be bananas. And Gibbe, when Myles ran out there and you heard that roar, it felt special. And we're talking about getting excited for a practice. That's all it was. It wasn't a scrimmage. It was a practice.
Even before Myles Garrett ran out, and that was pretty awesome. And then he just left his helmet at the 40-yard line and ran back in, which was pretty awesome. The crowd was so amped up that a ref ran out. Did you see the ref run out of the tunnel?
Yes.
And run just a little circle to the 20-yard line and back. And the whole crowd went ballistic for the ref.
Listen, hey, it's smart. Our fans, not only are they the most passionate, they're smart. Let's already get in good with the officials. You never know. Could be one call here or there. Maybe that official will remember, hey, the orange and brown practice, they really treated me well there in Cleveland. Yeah, they looked out for me. They
I don't think it was an NFL ref.
I don't care, Gibbe. We don't care. We're anything, no stone unturned. That's if you were to say, what is the defining ethos of this organization? No stone unturned to try to put the best product on the field possible. And we're not above, doing some cheering. Listen, maybe he knows an official. He's an aspiring official at the very least.
Correct. No, I'm not saying he can't one day be an NFL official. I just don't – I don't think they're NFL officials as of now.
Is this Scoops Gibbe? Is this a scoop?
Probably wrong, but, it's fine. Eventually, 2 years from now, I could be doing a victory lap on it.
It'd be great.
It'd be great. That's where we're at.
I love it. All right, so takeaways, the fans, the number one takeaway for me. For those of you who have not seen it, we did do a Browns Live yesterday from the Orange and Brown practice. Myself and Ken Carmen hosted. Joe Thomas came by. Paul DePodesta came by. And we got a good segment with the Hoff, obviously, because he's there. It's going to be good. And then I thought our interview with Paul DePodesta was very interesting and illuminating about just kind of this organization, their thought processes about various things. I would urge you to check it out. It's at youtube.com/Browns. I've tweeted out the show a billion times so you can get it off of my timeline. What were we at, Gibbe? Did you say we were at?
I think it was 56,000.
Yeah, quite a few views already. So that's great that you guys are checking it out. It's a fun hour. I think you'll like it, and if you're going to really hone in on some things, we go through the cornerback room at one point, and then Joe Thomas, Paul DePodesta are the things I would hone in. We show as much practice as we're able to. No, these are not the camera angles that we would want, but you have to understand we're trying to make sure that nobody watching these things has an opportunity to go, oh, look at this formation, and oh, look at this. We're keeping it under wraps. Of course, there will be the preseason games and those types of things, but this is more about getting you close to the field, giving you some good analysis, some highlights, which you saw, and some people had some nice days yesterday, Gibbe.
Not too shabby indeed. And just for the record, when the team goes into 11-on-11 drills, like our local news affiliates, News 5, and everybody, no one's allowed to shoot that stuff.
And
those are NFL rules.
Yep.
So for the people that were clamoring for more, we totally understand.
Yeah.
The NFL does not allow. They want you coming back for more.
It's
like a tease.
It is a tease. And listen, we don't want anybody out there trying to spy on what we're doing and to see what's going on with the Cleveland Browns. We're going to unleash this on September the 12th. All right, first question, Gibbe. 3 guys whose stock is up after yesterday. 3 people who made a big impression on you, if anybody. You can give me one if you want. You can give me as many as you want, Gibbe. I'm not going to limit you.
Can I say the tight ends?
Yeah.
David Njoku with a fantastic day, and Harrison Bryant, who we haven't talked a lot about.
Yep.
Appeared on the big stage and shined pretty bright yesterday.
Yeah, so I had in the 3 names that I wrote down, Harrison Bryant was the top of my list, and he's had a quiet, workmanlike camp, but made some great catches down in the red zone, even had a bomb to end practice for a long touchdown, and that was, the day that we've been wanting to see from Harrison Bryant. Remember, it was a year ago that Harrison Bryant was the star of early training camp here in Berea, and Harrison Bryant went on to have a very successful rookie season. I think, coming out, he had the fumble against the Raiders and then another one down in Jacksonville, and I think that kind of rattled him a little bit, so he didn't finish like he started. But this is a guy, natural route runner. He's improved his blocking from talking to the coaches, and, Drew Petzing said, I feel like we have 3 number 1 tight ends on this roster. Now, Hoop had a couple drops yesterday, and he'd be the first to admit it. And I know Baker talked about it after practice, but you have all the confidence in the world in Austin Hooper, the 2-time Pro Bowler. And then there's the Chief, and he's a guy, because of his size, his speed, his jumping ability, he's always going to be a factor in the red zone. But I like that it feels like we're trying to get him more involved in the seam, in the screen game, just because he's such a good athlete, and he's a mismatch. And he had a nice day. Couple touchdown grabs down there near the goal line, but also some deep balls on the day as well. And then you can't have a Browns show right now without increasing the stock value of a Donovan Peoples-Jones, who, again, yesterday, clearly the number 1 target. The rhythm that he is in on some of those slants where he gets catch it and run, the big playability there for Donovan Peoples-Jones continues to be on display. And he's one of the guys. He's certainly the talk of our organization, but now as national people are starting to bring it up and hear about it as well. And he's a guy that's going to be difficult to keep off the field, and you think about the wide receiver depth now that the Browns have, and we're going to hear from Pat Kerwin, former NFL GM. He mentions that in my interview with him that we play in the second hour. We'll talk with Jake Trotter about it at 2 o'clock, Charles Robinson from Yahoo at 1:30, but this receiver room, the depth is pretty striking, because Hollywood Higgins, the next question on here is what was the play of the day, and I think it's Hollywood Higgins laying out, catching a beautiful ball from Case Keenum for a touchdown, and then walking the red carpet with, Baker coming down as a photog once again. But
he had to walk a little slower.
Well, he said he knocked the air.
The ball knocked the wind out of him.
Yeah, the ball knocked the wind out of him, and so he had to kind of just, it was a little bit of a stroll down. It took him a second to get up, get ready, get composed, but then he walked the red carpet, and I just saw Hollywood on my way into the building today. He's doing well. He's fine from that. But that was probably, I thought, the play of the day.
Yeah, I thought from a play of the day, the Harrison Bryant in the back of the end zone at the end was pretty impressive.
Yep.
The Kareem Hunt touchdown run.
Didn't get touched, and he was gone.
And
he's had a real nice camp.
I was going to say, in terms of my top 3 from yesterday, I'm just going with groups more than anything else. I thought the offensive line for a good chunk of the day was pretty good. And that includes the second stringers.
Yep.
Because Case Keenum had himself a day yesterday against the first-team defense, mind you.
Yeah, he had a nice day, and that's why it's so good to have a veteran quarterback like that on this roster. And you hope you don't need him much, but that if you do need him for a little bit of time, you know that he can fill in and start capably and run this offense effectively the way he did back in Minnesota in 2017 when he took that team to the NFC Championship game. Here's a guy, though, that I'm going to single out that we have not talked about much. This is also a shameless plug for the BPA. No Clooney, but you will get Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah on that show. And I'll tell you, he stands out on the field. His speed and they were doing a lot of passing drills yesterday, and you can't hit guys and dislodge the ball from them, so he wasn't doing that. But, boy, he was right there every time somebody was going to either try to catch a pass or caught a pass in anywhere near his area, which, by the way, feels like it's sideline to sideline. I mean, his closing speed, and one member of our front office that I talked to said, I was going through the tape, watching the practice, and I go, man, that 28 is fast. He said, yeah, he is. He is quite fast. So Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, I think, got a big stock-up day yesterday, and it's just your eyes gravitate to his speed.
Yeah, well, and it's one of those where we've actually in practice seen him overrun a play or two because he doesn't wait for the play to develop or come back to him because he's in the right spot in advance and he forces a cutback or forces a change. I think it's getting frustrating for the defensive players because he mentioned it on the BPA when we talked to him yesterday. It's frustrating because the fans are cheering as a guy goes into the end zone. He goes, that guy would have never, ever gone into the end zone. That guy would not have gotten 10 yards.
Right.
If I were allowed to tackle.
That's right.
And they're right. I think they're getting a little, they need to hit somebody. I think that's where we're getting to with the defense right now.
And that's what I like about the fact that this game is coming. It's time to see this defense be able to hit some people. And, if there was one key takeaway, and I think this is a hot topic from yesterday in my interview with Paul DePodesta on Browns Live, it was, he's like, do we need to see Nick Chubb in the preseason? I mean, we'd like to. It's fun. But do we need to see that? So I have a feeling the Browns, at least initially in the preseason, I think maybe at some point they're going to get some reps for guys. But I think we are going to err much more on the side of caution because we're not here to win the preseason. We are here to win as this season progresses into January and into hopefully February for this organization.
My third group, good news. The running game's just fine.
Oh, yeah.
And by the way, there are some guys on the back end of that room that aren't named Dearness Johnson or Demetric Felton that showed some things that are going to get some playing time here over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, a guy that I'm interested to see in that running back room is John Kelly. He wears number 49, and I think he's flashed a little bit. So Kelly, it was a 6th-round pick of the Rams back in 2018. He played for them, 30 career carries, 110 total yards, spent almost all of last year on the Browns practice squad. An interesting young player, and somebody that the Browns have seen something in to keep him around. And, with Demetric Felton, he's been playing more receiver. Yesterday, again, was a day at receiver for Demetric Felton. And I know Chad O'Shea likes what he has in the young player out of the UCLA. Running back is obviously more natural to him. That's what he did in college. But they're not keeping – if they keep 4 running backs, 4 tailbacks, halfbacks, that would count Felton as one. But John Kelly's a guy that I think you want to keep in your organization in the event that you ever needed to go down there. But he's looked good, and I'll be curious to see, the preseason. There should be a lot of carries for John Kelly. There should be a lot of opportunities for him. I think Dearness will get plenty of opportunities. I think Demetric Felton, I think the preseason could end up being somewhat of a showcase for him in the sense that he's probably going to get reps at both positions in preseason games, which is exciting. And, maybe they'll decide, hey, week 1, you're going to be a running back. Week 2, you're going to be a receiver. Maybe he won't play multiple positions in one game. That's going to be something that's interesting to see. For a guy like Donovan Peoples-Jones, he's probably going to get some run, but are they a little bit more judicious with his snaps than you would have expected? And is it going to be more about, Jamarcus Bradley and Kaderil Hodge trying to make sure that he makes this football team and Ryan Switzer at wide receiver?
Well, and it's going to be interesting to see how the week plays out because Coach said it yesterday, and you'll hear it coming up when we play a little bit from him yesterday. He mentions, we're not even focusing on Jacksonville till Thursday.
Right.
It's still training camp for us on Tuesday and Wednesday. Thursday we'll start to implement some things that we want to see on Saturday in the Jacksonville game. But Jacksonville isn't really – it's not about Jacksonville. It's about getting these guys ready and having their installation finalized.
Yeah. Look, it's about – this game against Jacksonville is going to be going through the game practice. And what I mean by that is, how do we come out of the tunnel? How are we when we go into halftime? What are we doing at halftime to prepare for the second half? Going through the procedures of having a game on the road. Last time Kevin Stefanski and the Browns went on the road, it was in the playoffs, but to open the season a year ago, they had never done that in another stadium in the game in Baltimore, which did not go the way the Browns wanted to and certainly didn't derail our season. But I think there's going to be some of going through, all right, here's how we're going to do things. It's a dress rehearsal in that sense for probably the starters, but they're not. I don't think they're going to play much. I don't know. These aren't scores, but my guess is, based on some of the comments from Paul DePodesta and knowing what the goals are for this team, that if you do see them, it's going to be very, very limited. So this is a game ultimately, though, that is much more about some of the things that we've been highlighting here. Who shows up at receiver and throws their name into that sixth receiver conversation? Who shows up? Do any of these running backs come? Does D'Ernest, have that kind of a game where he absolutely locks it down? Steve Carlson, who's had, I think, a nice camp. Does he continue? He should get some chances at tight end. Linebackers. This is where the Elijah Lees and the Malcolm Smiths and Malcolm. Look, Coach Tarver loves Malcolm Smith. You heard that one-on-one. I feel like his spot is pretty safe, but when you've got all these good, young, hungry guys, and Tony Fields, look, he's got to try to get back out there as soon as he can to try and make this roster. It's going to be about those guys. It's how does A.J. Green look and Robert Jackson battling for that last corner spot. These are the things. Javonte Moffitt probably is going to get a pretty good opportunity in this game because I would be surprised. We'll see how the week progresses, but so far Ronnie and Grant have been nursing those hamstrings, and you've got Sheldrick Redwine, who's been out with that ankle injury and hasn't even been one of the guys who's on the sidelines going through, the conditioning that those guys go through. So Javonte Moffitt, Richard LeCount. It's a big day for the 6th-round pick out of Georgia. These are the guys, the 5th-round pick, I'm sorry. These are the guys that are really going to try to make their marks in this game. That's what it's about. It's those depth guys that are battling to make this roster. And I'm excited to see it because I think we've gotten into the defensive tackle battle. And by the way, we don't know the status yet for Malik McDowell, but you would have thought that would be a massive game for Malik McDowell. He had to leave the field yesterday with an oblique injury, and that's it. That's where we're at. That's where we are with this team. By the way, Saturday, just a quick update. Coach said he had no expectation when Takk McKinley will return. He remains away from the team for personal reasons, and it sounds like it's a situation where he could be back tomorrow. He might not be back for a few weeks. We don't know, but certainly our thoughts and our well wishes are with Takk McKinley as he, deals with these personal situations, because I'll tell you what, the guy was an absolute monster while he was here. He was wreaking havoc in the backfield, and I think he is a huge part of our pass rush this season, and I know how much it meant to him from the time that I got to interview him, and certainly I'm pulling for him, and we hope we get to Takk back here and get him back here soon. All right, when we come back, we're going to hear from head coach Kevin Stefanski, his post-practice presser at First Energy Stadium yesterday following the orange and brown practice. And by the way, if you missed it, no worries. Catch up on all of the action, plus Joe Thomas, plus the interview with Paul DePodesta by logging on to youtube.com/Browns, or as I said, I tweeted it out. Watch Sunday's Browns Live featuring an interview, as I said, with Depot, and also check out the best podcast available on our YouTube channel featuring a post-practice interview with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who had a heck of a day at the Orange and Brown. Kevin Stefanski next here on Cleveland Browns Daily from the Cross Country Mortgage Campus in Berea. All right, welcome back to Cleveland Browns Daily. Here are highlights from head coach Kevin Stefanski's post-practice presser at First Energy Stadium following the orange and brown practice yesterday.
All right, good to see everybody.
You're down.
Great seeing our fans out here. This was incredible. Not surprised. It's a uniquely loyal fan base, and I appreciate them. Great seeing all the kids out here, people bringing their families out here, so that was outstanding. They brought the energy. They definitely brought the juice out here. I know the players responded to that. Got some really good work in situationally. Saw us down in the red zone a couple times. Saw some 2-minute drills. So pleased with the work today. And then I'll take any of your questions.
Kevin, how did Tony Dungy's visiting come to be, and what was his message to you guys?
So Coach Dungy, I met Coach Dungy through Leslie Frazier years ago. And obviously he's a Hall of Fame coach, but he's a Hall of Fame person. And he's been very supportive of me, and we've stayed in touch. So I made sure if he was in town for the festivities down there, I wanted him to come over and visit with the team. So I got to spend some time with him before practice, and then he shared some words with the team. So it was outstanding.
Ryan and Njoku had some great catches today. Do you feel like the tight end core is really, coming on strong?
Yeah, Marla, we feel good about that room. We've talked about it. We think all those guys have unique skills. They all complement each other in their skills. So pleased to see them make some plays. They're going to have to continue to do that for us.
Kevin, does anything stand out about Baker through a couple weeks, and even how he's handling kind of the ups and downs of a normal training game?
Yeah, he's pushing along. Scott, has had some really good moments, some moments to learn from. I think that's the natural course of training camp. I think the defense has made our offense really, really work. They've done a nice job of being tight in coverage. The pass rush, the run fits have been outstanding. So I think it's a really good battle back and forth, and we've said it. I know you want to score every practice, but I think these guys are trading blows every day.
When you come back,
30.
you hit a new level of camp now that the Jacksonville game's coming up? Or
Not really. We're still in training camp mode. We'll spend a little bit of time on Jacksonville on Thursday as we install a game plan, but really the focus for us is we have to get better at a lot of areas. And we're not going to spend too much time on Jacksonville. Really, I should say we won't spend time on them till Thursday. Just so you're in training camp. There's a lot of work that needs to go, and as opposed to putting in a game plan to try.
You're up.
All right, that's Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski after a good day of work there. And again, we've talked about it being one of the hallmarks of this team's practices. So much emphasis on situational football, and we saw that yesterday at First Energy Stadium, as he mentioned, the red zone drill, the 2-minute drill, all of those little things, turning a drive in the red zone 7 instead of 3, the 4-point plays. These are critical, and Kevin Stefanski knows that. They did some work, and they called it the high red zone, where they get down to the 30, and that's where you got to make sure you get into the red zone and then get into the end zone. And the Browns did a good job in those periods. So that was kind of the tenor of the work, and then it'll be interesting to see this week, the day off today, obviously, back at work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, fly down to Jacksonville, and then Saturday night you'll take on the Jags in the preseason opener. Full coverage of that game, obviously, on News 5. We'll have the pregame show, the broadcast, as well as the University Hospital's Cleveland Browns radio network, so it's going to be fun. I can't wait to get down there. Still a lot of work to do this week, and I'm hopeful that we're going to see some of the guys who have been missing some time maybe get back this week, and maybe that was kind of the thing. Let's hold them out, get them a couple days' work, and then we can see a guy like Grant Delpit. I think it's critically important for Grant Delpit to get out there and get on the field in this preseason before the Browns, can count on him in the regular season. And listen, when you're starting September 12th in Kansas City, you got to be ready to go if you're going to be on the field defensively against that great offense. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, Charles Robinson, NFL senior reporter for Yahoo Sports and the host of the U-Pod to Win the Game. It's a great name. Joins us next. He was at camp last week. All the big stories in the NFL and more. Charles Robinson from Yahoo next. If you live and breathe football, you know sometimes keeping your priorities straight can be a challenge. Unfortunately, the same can be true when you are gambling. If you find your gambling is affecting other parts of your life, we can help. Get tips on responsible gambling at keepitfunohio.com. Very happy to go to the hotline now as we are joined by Charles Robinson, the NFL senior reporter for Yahoo Sports and the host of the You Pod to Win the Game podcast. You can follow him on Twitter at Charles Robinson. And Charles, first of all, thank you for being with us here today. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, brother. How you doing today?
Great, and I'm sure you're happy to be back out in 2021, getting around, seeing the camps. I know you got a chance to check out the Browns camp. You know, prior to coming, what were your thoughts and expectations for this team, and then what did you see when you were here?
Well, it's weird because, you know, you're coming in absent – I don't want to say upheaval, but, you know, it was always, anytime you go into Browns camp in previous years, there was always, you know, you're riding on the edge of something, you know, whether it's a coaching change, a general manager change, or the quarterback question, or the Odell Beckham Jr. questions, or whatever it was. You know, it was always a spicy visit. And, you know, this time it felt a little low-key, which was different. But it was nice. And, you know, it was funny because afterward I was talking to Kevin Stefanski, and I said, you know, every time I come into a camp, I like to grab the roster, you know, sit and just go down the entire, you know, 90-man roster and circle who do I want to look at. So let me, you know, who do I want to put eyes on while I'm on the field? Yeah. And I think I circled 14 names and 13 of them were on defense.
It's a new look.
So it was, it was definitely an experience getting to see a lot of the new additions, and then, you know, some of the holdovers, and it's a talented team. There's no question about that. But yeah, there were a few things while I was there that raised an eyebrow and left an impression on me going out the door.
All right, well, we'll start at the beginning. I agree. I think this camp has been boring in all the right ways, which is exactly what we want, and has been, as you mentioned, a departure from things in the past. So you mentioned at the end something caught your eye, raised some eyebrows. What were the things that stood out to you about this football team?
Well, until he got injured, I was surprised. Like, Malik McDowell was a guy that you know, I went to Michigan State. I knew the immense talent he had while he was at Michigan State. And then, you know, everything that kind of fell apart for him throughout his career and not having played an NFL snap. I was surprised when they signed him because, you know, I know the kind of program they're trying to build there. And in his previous stops, a big question about Malik was always the program. You know, is he someone who can get on the same page as the program, show the dedication? I didn't know what to expect when I got there. And, literally, I was stunned at what he the way he looked. He looked like he had his weight was where it was supposed to be. He was you know, the size, everything you sort of expected when he first.
It looks like Calais Campbell out there. It's crazy.
Yeah, and you know, it was when I had a chance to watch him in one-on-ones. Really active, great hand usage, and I stood there and I was like, hey, you know, this is a guy who's going to make the roster. That's what I thought. I mean, it was, again, you know, you're talking about a limited snapshot there, and obviously the injury happened after I left. Yeah. But it was something where I was like, wow, this was a little bit of I felt like they took a flyer on him, and then to watch, and I was like, this is a player with talent who's got the ability to make a 53-man roster, and then let's see what happens after that. So, you know, that raised an eyebrow while I was there. I spent some time focusing on the wide receiver group, and, you know, Donovan Peoples-Jones was catching everything. Yeah. Looked really, really good watching him, and gave me the feeling that I would expect the tandem of Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham. I think this will probably be the last year that those two are together. I think at some point there's going to have to be a hard decision made at the position, you know, a financial decision. And I would expect that, you know, the Browns will probably be a team that's in the wide receiver market next offseason, you know, looking to add to the position. But then, like I said, between that tandem, I'd be surprised if both Odell and Jarvis were there next year. the defensive players that I looked at, I thought Jadeveon Clowney, the limited snapshot I got from him, he looked, especially when they were in 11 and 11s, he made a couple unreal moves in basically holding the edge, and he would have probably taken down the running back for a loss 2 or 3 times in the limited time I watched him, which is really promising because, I live in Houston, and when he was at I felt like his peak Pro Bowl level in Houston, he was getting, pass rush pressures, not a huge sack numbers, but he was immensely impactful in the run game and holding that edge. And I know that's something that he pressed a lot when he was in Tennessee last year, did some freelancing. It didn't help him, but he looked healthy, and he looked like that was part of his game that reminded me of the guy I saw who was at his height in Houston. So, those were just a few of the things that, I thought were pretty promising. But like I said, the overall vibe of it just being not chaotic, being calm, being a good, positive environment, I felt like was sort of an extension from last year.
It is. Talking with Charles Robinson, the NFL senior reporter from Yahoo Sports and the host of UPod to Win the Game. Follow him on Twitter at Charles Robinson. You mentioned calm, not chaotic. I mean, those are adjectives that would very aptly describe our head coach, Kevin Stefanski, and and Andrew Berry and Paul DePodesta. And the team has really started to, I think, kind of take on that image. When you sat down with the head coach, the reigning coach of the year in the NFL, anything strike you in that conversation or anything you found interesting?
Well, I just asked him, I said, do you, the way I always look at it is when a team has a lack of success for a sustained period or just sort of chaos in an organization, and then things come together in a season, you tend to be at a little bit of a precipice that next year, because if you can stack another great season on top of it, now you have consistency. You do it 2 years in a row, and then guys in the locker room are looking at each other going, hey, this is kind of who we are, especially the younger guys who haven't gone through a lot of the fits and starts of the past. And so I said to Kevin, I was like, do you kind of feel like you're there right now, where you're right on this edge of, you have this ability to accomplish this consistency this year, where you can say to guys, hey, it's no longer an aberration. The program works. It worked in 2020. Now it's worked in 2021. This is who we are, and this is what we build on. And he was like, absolutely. He said that was definitely something that, from the mentality standpoint, they're working on, building that. But what I thought was smart is he's like, you're not focusing on, you don't focus on the season. You don't focus on the month. He's like, you literally focus on like every day. Here's the positive commitment to the program today, Monday. Okay, we're past that. Here's the positive commitment to the program today, Tuesday. And what struck me about that is it reminded me a lot of last season, in that I think the way that they built things, it was sort of, as you establish it, let's beat the bad teams. Okay, we're beating bad teams. We know we can do that. Okay, now let's beat the teams that, are our equal, that measure up to us. And then eventually it was, hey, you know what? Now we're going to play a team that probably exceeds us a little bit in talent and experience. Can we beat a good team and pull ourselves up that way? And that's, I think, what they accomplished last year. Right. And that's sort of, when you talk to Kevin about it, like that was sort of the mentality. It wasn't like, hey, we got to do this year. We got to win the Super Bowl. We got to get the playoffs. It was, no, here's what we got to do on Monday. And then here's what we got to do on Tuesday. And that was sort of what he and I talked about, just that mentality of each and every day, sort of stacking that.
We often say on this show, Charles, that he's got, it used to be the 3 Ps. We've added a 4th P, but that he is prepared, he has a plan, and he has a process to implement the plan. In this case, a process focusing one day at a time, like a Clydesdale. The 4th P we had is just his poise, because the guy is the same always, and I think that resonates very well with his players. So let's just get your expectations then. What do you think this team can or should be in 2021?
Well, let's see where they are in September. Here's the thing: we're a month from the season starting, and it was funny because I was just in Eagles camp, and I was talking to somebody from their front office, and I'm like, what are you thinking about right now? And he said to me, I'm thinking, I got 4 weeks to try and get no injury.
Yeah, it's a long time.
Get through this 4 weeks. Please let nobody go down, And so I hate to put expectations on it now because we don't know, who's going to come up limping between now and then. But I will say this: look, the talent level there it's what I thought it would be. They're going to have. I think cuts are going to be interesting, because the roster now is to the point now where you're not going to have that bottom, churn of, hey, we have to churn 40 to 53. I don't think that's the kind of churn now. Now I think it's 46 to 53, and you're going to have tough decisions. And, like Malik McDowell is a good example. He gets hurt. You don't know. I mean, let's see how this all shakes out and what disruption's there. But if I'm them, if they're seeing talent and someone who's buying in the program, all these things, you're going to have to think long and hard about, okay, maybe we lost some time here with this guy, but he was sort of on the curve we wanted him to be on. We have a tough decision here, but maybe we take the chance and keep this guy around. So I think the talent's going to be there to compete, in the division. There's no question. I just think let's see what it looks like with Baker. Let's make sure that the offensive line is healthy, and then elements of the offensive line are taking the step forward that they need to. We'll see what happens with some of the contract stuff. I'll be completely honest with you. I don't think there's any. From my understanding, what I know and what I understand, I don't think the Baker extension is getting done. I don't think it's going to get done in the preseason. I think there's a chance that maybe it's something that gets done, at some point during the regular season. But I think both sides are kind of comfortable measuring to sort of see where this goes. And then, I think if it goes in the direction the Browns want, the difference is going to be paying more than they would have if they had pushed really hard to get it done this offseason. But I think it's also a comfort level with paying more. You're like, hey, we have more data. We're really comfortable in this. We're not going to find ourselves in a Jared Goff or Carson Wentz kind of situation where, later we're regretting pulling that trigger. The Ward extension, unless it happened this morning and I didn't see it.
Did not.
I would say is going to be a tough one. I think that's going to be a battle getting that extension done. So, that's another one that I think, it's going to be a wait, and it may not, happen on the timeline that a lot of people hope it would. So, but again, a lot of this is just going to lean on, if Baker can show that consistency and taking another step, and they can establish themselves the way they established themselves last year through the running game. And then I think some of these defensive additions, particularly in that front seven, if those guys can have a really big impact, I think it can be a really exciting team. And, oh, by the way, remember, we're not done here yet. There's yesterday, we find out, hey, the Jacksonville Jaguars are offering up a first-round pick, their first-round cornerback, who a lot of people know has a lot of talent, but no one's quite sure what exactly the issue is there. There are going to be other players like that, including that player, that I think, the Browns are always going to keep their ears open to see if there's an opportunity to keep adding to the roster.
To upgrade this roster. That's right. Now, Charles Robinson, our guest, the NFL senior reporter for Yahoo Sports. Charles, you mentioned these contract extensions. Well, one did get done. It was Nick Chubb earlier last week, or late last week, I should say. Now, when you saw that deal, A, what was your initial reaction? And B, do you think that can send a message that could be helpful to perhaps a Denzel Ward from a Browns perspective, or even a Baker, that, look, there's a good chance Nick Chubb probably could have gone out to the open market, now with some risk, right, having to get through this season and gotten more. But he said emphatically, I want to be a Cleveland Brown.
Right. Yeah, and he's a huge program guy. I don't think there's any question. There's no. It's funny because a lot of people who don't go through Cleveland they don't know that, how kind of quiet Nick Chubb is, or kind of he's not. Let me put it this way: there are a lot of running backs out there that are far more flamboyant, who are far more, I think, forceful about, hey, I want to max out, every contract because I'm at a position where, you don't get a lot of opportunities to max out contracts. I think he is a really good example of someone who's absolutely in the wheelhouse of what the Browns want to build. Big program guy, someone who's like, look, I don't want to take this to the 11th hour fighting over, getting every last cent possible. I want to get it done because I want continuity. I want it off my mind. I want to get to work, which is sort of, I was there actually right after he had signed the deal and he talked. And that was one of the things I took away from just sort of listening to him was wanting that continuity just to get it done and go back to work every day and not thinking about it. With Ward, here's the thing. You don't know what other possibilities are out there. And especially when you have, agents obviously who are representing clients, what they're doing is they're sizing up the market and they're saying, hey, look, even if you want to stay, maybe the best thing to do is to get as close to market or even go to market if possible and know what your true max value is. And I think this is one of those situations where, it's going to be I don't see much of a break happening, to be honest with you. And so I think that's why this is going to be a little more drawn out. Whereas, the Baker situation, I think it's just sort of getting as much data as possible and knowing that if you're sitting there and you're staring at the Baker contract and you're saying, if we really push this hard early in the off season before the Josh Allen deal came in or anything else, and I'm not saying these are the numbers, but this is just the example I'll give you.
Yeah.
Maybe we get it done at 35 per, but if we wait and we gather data and it's the data we want and it's everything's going the way we want it and we end up paying 40 per, we're happy with that.
Okay with
like that's fine. Like it's a pretty decent, difference between 35 and 40.
Sure.
But that's information you're really happy to pay for, and especially at that position. So with Baker, I think it's less about maxing it out than just having a full like a global understanding of exactly what you got, what might be missing, what might be necessary in terms of roster building, the consistency, all these different things. Whereas with Ward, I really truly believe like he's just got representation that's like, hey, you're going to have an unbelievable market out here. It's just the way it is for corners. And, maybe you want to see exactly what your top dollar is.
And we will see how that plays out. Charles, you mentioned the Josh Allen contract, your reaction to that and what it means. You mentioned already what it means kind of for Baker, but for the league in general. And I would look at, another team in our division, Baltimore, with Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, it's a monster. It was a huge deal. I mean, guaranteed money. I think quarterback, for a lot of teams, it's becoming a little more precarious, particularly if you're dealing with, if you have like a top 10 quarterback, the mentality of agents is if you're a top 10 quarterback, your number is the highest number. Like you're number one. Like we're going to get you the top quarterback deal. And I think, for NFL teams out there, they're sitting there going, do we really should we really subscribe to this? Like, are we just going to, if we've got the 10th best quarterback in the league, but this is his first deal or his first extension, do we just automatically, do we have to put him at the top of the heap? Like, are we just going to keep doing this? And it's creating, like, Allen's different because I think what he brings to the table, the size, the arm, the fact that he's taken, decent steps every single year. And obviously last year was a pretty monumental step. He's brought a lot of leadership to that team faster than I think maybe they thought would have happened. He is a very special talent from every box you want to look at. And it doesn't mean he doesn't still have, some blind spots there, but I think it's when it's not someone with a top 5 arm who has an ability to be an MVP candidate every single year, which I think Josh Allen does. It's just now when you get beyond those candidates, when it's a Dak Prescott, good quarterback. I don't know if he's a $40 million quarterback. Nobody knows. I mean, we'll see if he ultimately is, but it's definitely, I think, putting front offices in a position where I question whether or not there might be an instance in the next few years where a team just says, we got to walk. Like, we can't do this. We do have a top 10 quarterback, but we can't pay our top 10 quarterback number one money. We can't pay him more than Patrick Mahomes. We can't pay him more than Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson. We just have to make the really tough decision here and say you're worth $10 million less than you want, and that's kind of the position we're in. That's
going to be
a monumentally
fascinating.
tough decision.
Yeah.
The Ravens aren't going to make that decision.
Right.
They're going to pay Lamar Jackson's going to make Josh Allen money. So
wild. And then last one, and we appreciate the time. It's been great. You mentioned the Philadelphia Eagles earlier. You were talking with somebody in the front office. They have been the team that has been bandied about as the most likely to absorb some risk and be aggressive with Deshaun Watson. So I'll ask you today, what do you think happens with Deshaun Watson as it relates to the 2021 season? And is Philly, is there some fire with that smoke?
I think the interest is there. I don't think there's any question about that. I think Philly and Carolina is another team that, even with Sam Darnold in the fold, I think they have an owner in David Tepper who believes in being aggressive, and I think we'll look at, what the Watson availability means, what the price tag is. But, everybody's in the same. First off, the AFC teams, Miami, sure, they're interested. Denver, they're interested. But I really don't believe Houston wants to trade him inside the AFC. I really
get him
think
to the NFC. There's too many good young quarterbacks in the AFC already.
Yeah,
go ahead, send him to the NFC.
Exactly. Yeah, I think they'd really, if Houston had its druthers and was going to get the package it wanted, it really would want it to be in the NFC. But the problem, and I've talked to a number of general managers about this, including some that are interested and want to be involved, is what's the unknowns out there. And everybody's talking in the same language in terms of pick protections. Like, hey, there's got to be something to de-escalate these picks if this guy gets suspended half a season or a full season, or, geez, if he's indicted for a felony and, has to go through a felony prosecution, this kind of stuff. We don't want to have multiple first-round picks on the line here and then all of a sudden not have a player on the field. But then also beyond that, they're disturbed by what's already out there, and that they're very worried that there's more.
Yep.
And not knowing what happens then after a trade occurs. So the big complication, for Houston is just that they're not – everyone wants to pay 50, 60 cents on the dollar for Deshaun Watson under these circumstances.
Yeah.
Nick Caserio, the Houston general manager, doesn't want to do it. So what he's been doing is saying, okay, go ahead, call. I'll call you back when I get around to it, because I know your offer's not anywhere near what we feel like his value is. So we're going to ride it out until we can get as close to its maximum value as we see possible. And in the meantime, we'll hope maybe we can pull an Aaron Rodgers situation and convince this guy to take the field for us in 2021, no matter how unlikely that seems right now. They don't have any choice but to ride with him, so why not try to see if you can play with him?
Do you think he plays this season? And if he does, do you think it's Texans or other?
Oh, man, that's a good question. I tend to think no. I mean, I know Houston really wants to make one more run at him, and I'll put it to you this way: Aaron Rodgers throughout the offseason, going through that entire saga, talking to everybody, I always felt like Aaron would be on the field again. Like that, he's going to play. He's not going to sit out in 2021. Watson's a little different. Like I feel like the conviction there to not be a part of that program, but then the lack of traction in terms of trades has put the Texans in a really tough situation where you got a guy who doesn't want to be on the field, but you also don't want to deal him for sub-market value. So, I think the only way he gets put on the commissioner's exempt list or the league makes some kind of a move here is if a grand jury's impaneled and he gets indicted on a felony prosecution. Then I think if he got indicted for felony prosecution, then I think the league steps in, they set him to the side. I personally don't think that's going to happen before September. So I think ultimately what you're going to have is the Texans are going to make a run, try to see if they can get him to come back into the fold before the season starts. And if he says no, they're going to say, okay, well, we're going to have to carry you through the season. You're just never going to be on the field. And I think that's what he wants anyway. He doesn't want to trot out there on the field. He doesn't want to play for him. He doesn't want to be part of the program right now. So unless some teammates can convince him otherwise, or some other people in the building who he's still close to, I think that, the Texans are going to have to carry him until there's some kind of resolution either from the league or if a grand jury's impaneled and they decide that, there's not enough evidence there to go forward with the prosecution, I think that would actually open the trade lines quite a bit. I think if teams sit there and go, hey, a grand jury looked at this and they did not see a path to a felony prosecution, now we feel a little bit better about maybe offering a little bit more for them.
I mean, it seems like 100 years ago that they were ahead of the Chiefs by 20 in the playoffs, and that was
it's nuts.
That was
it's
a year and a half ago.
It is a lifetime. Yeah.
Absolutely wild. Charles, this was incredible stuff. Really appreciate the time and the nuggets that you dropped for us. Again, everybody follow him on Twitter at Charles Robinson. Always has great NFL coverage, insight, and news. If you paid attention to the scores he dropped for you there, you learned a heck of a lot about things coming not only for our team, but around the league. And listen to his podcast, You Pod to Win the Game. Charles, thanks so much for the time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Call me anytime.
Great stuff there. Listen, the Parade of Stars continues. We kick off hour number 2 with Jake Trotter, ESPN NFL Nation Browns reporter. His takeaways from Sunday's Orange and Brown, not to mention a look ahead to game week for your Cleveland Browns. This is Cleveland Browns Daily here on ESPN Cleveland. Injuries during childbirth require experienced counsel. Call the lawyers at Elk & Elk for a clear answer as to what happened during your child's birth. Elk & Elk, proud partner of the Cleveland Browns. Call 1-800-ELK-OHIO. The Parade of Stars continues as we are joined now by ESPN NFL Nation Browns reporter Jake Trotter. Jake, thank you for being with us today. How are you doing on a player's day off?
Players' day off, media day off.
Yes.
Well, at least for me. I mean, I'm still working today. I mean, I've been working since like 8 a.m., 9 a.m., but at least I didn't have to go anywhere today. So.
All right, before we get into the Browns, I want to get into something that I was scrolling through your Twitter, and you're writing exposés on cornhole. Is this right? Do I have this correct?
I did. I'm the ESPN Cornhole Insider. We have Woj, our NBA insider.
Yes.
Schefter's our NFL insider, and I'm the guy. I'm the go-to guy, apparently, on cornhole. But yeah, I did a big.
How did this
piece
happen? Is this based on your performance as a cornhole man?
No, nothing to do with my talent as a cornhole player, which is mediocre at best. I try to do different kinds of stories beyond covering the Browns. I've got a couple more I'm working on, actually. That's what I've been working on today, non-Browns related stories. And, we were looking to do something in conjunction with Ocho Day, which is on Friday, where you have your putt-putt championship.
Yeah, sure.
Your tag. I was interested in the tag, but did you see the guy stone skipping? He threw it like 78 times across the river. So
wow.
We wanted to do something fun for Ocho Day, and I ended up with the cornhole story. And what was kind of cool about it, I thought, was just all the fascinating backstories of the people behind the rise of the game. A lot of Ohio ties to cornhole, a lot of Cleveland ties to cornhole as well. So just doing something different.
I love it. And listen, I think it goes back to this training camp is as boring in a good way as it could possibly be, and so we've got to dabble for excitement elsewhere, and you're doing that with the great game of cornhole. And what I think is amazing about those guys, I fancy myself as a solid amateur player of the game. How good the pros these guys are, it's unreal.
It's unreal, like how you can throw it through the hole every
time.
And
yeah,
and again, what's crazy is the best players in the world. I mean, one guy was the head cheese maker of the Baby Bell cheese factory in Kentucky.
Wow.
He was the number one player in the world going into this world championship. And, the gal who won the women's singles and doubles championships last year was a Taco Bell manager in Florida. I mean, these people are just everyday people that have everyday jobs, and yet they're able to refine this skill and make a decent amount of money on the side playing cornhole. I mean, their payouts now are like $500,000. This is not like, this is not what it was 5 years ago. I mean, they really believe that they can make a compelling case to be an Olympic sport in a few years. I mean, we'll see, but if they're able to meet their goal of adding, I think it was 500,000 more players in 50 different countries. I mean, who knows? I mean, if curling is an Olympic sport,
yes,
I would say, why couldn't cornhole be one too?
Amen. I'm all for this, and I think anybody who's listening, and I'm sure a lot of you have played cornhole, when it comes down to a shot that you gotta have, and the heart gets racing, you feel the nerves. I want to see people under the Olympic pressure with a gold medal on the line doing something like that. I'm all for it. I would love to see it. I think that's
I don't know if the Olympics allows drinking during a particular event, but if they ever going to relax the rules, I think it would be for cornhole.
I think you are right. And, of course, this voice. We're talking with Jake Trotter, the ESPN NFL Nation Browns reporter. All right, we'll talk Browns, Jake. Orange and brown practice, great crowd, great environment, so much fun yesterday. What did you think about, A, that, and then, B, what you saw on the field?
Yeah, I mean, just driving in, it was kind of hard to get in. It felt like a game day. I mean, I usually get – for a 1 o'clock start, I usually get there around like 9:30, 10, and I didn't get there that early yesterday. So I was getting in kind of when the fans were getting in, and I couldn't get to my parking spot because it was just so chaotic with fans everywhere. And they didn't leave after the 45-minute lightning delay. They were fired up. So very fun atmosphere. I thought that the team had some nice moments on the field, but it was very cool to see, because these training camp practices, they've had fans, but it's not like it was in 2019, right? We had, several thousand fans circling the practice field. It's just, a few hundred right now. So it was cool to see that many people at a practice.
It was, and the energy, as you said, that it gave, and the vibe, and it just, boy, my mind immediately went to September the 19th, the home opener. It's gonna be rocking.
Yeah, it's crazy, by the way, that the home opener is not till the 19th of September. I feel like football season is already going on for a while. We're not even a month away yet. So a lot of training camp left, but there have been some interesting developments so far, right?
There have been. What's kind of stood out to you about this team? And I know we'll talk Donovan Peoples-Jones, but yesterday I thought a nice day for a former Jake Trotter. You singled him out early. Harrison Bryant with probably his best day of this 2021 camp.
Even you were texting about Harrison Bryant like the first week of training camp last year.
Yeah.
Like, uh-oh. We both saw that coming, I think, before anybody else did, that wasn't part of the front office or coaching staff. Guy catches everything. And even though he's their number 3 tight end, I really believe they feel like, if he was their number 1 tight end, they'd be fine with that. I think he's going to be very interchangeable with Hooper and Njoku.
Yep.
Not too dissimilar from last year, but yeah, just another weapon. And I think he's going to have a really nice season for them.
So as you kind of where things stand, and it feels like, I know this day off feels like we're almost getting like a little bit of a pause and a reset because things change. Right now we are turning our attention. We're in game week for the first time. Jacksonville on Saturday. What are you kind of hoping to see from this team leading up, or how do you see this week going leading into that game with Jacksonville?
Yeah, it's crazy that we're already – I was looking through I was going through notes this morning, and I was going through, training camp schedules for the rest of – and I was like, oh, wow, they do play a preseason game this week. It's crazy how fast that's come up on us. I think this week, leading into the game, and I don't know how much, if any, he's going to do in the game, but, Kevin Stefanski has hinted at the possibility of Odell doing more in 7-on-7, doing more in team. So I'm curious to see if that happens this week. That would be the one thing I would be looking at. And you mentioned Donovan Peoples-Jones. This receiving core has a chance to be one of the best in the league. Obviously with Odell and Jarvis, it has a chance to be that. But I think the depth of the receiving core is what's really intriguing right now. With Jarvis and Odell, not taking every snap like they would during a season, or most of the snaps, I should say. But, Higgins, a couple big-time plays yesterday that created the red carpet touchdown celebration after one of those catches from Case Keenum. DPJ has been the training camp MVP so far, right? And then, you got Hodge, who gets completely overlooked, but, he makes a lot of plays as well. Felton is kind of a running back receiver combo guy, has been lining up at receiver. And then, we talk about the tight ends, which are, de facto receivers in a lot of different ways. Baker is going to have 8, 9, 10 guys he's going to feel very comfortable throwing the ball to this season, I think.
And that's what's exciting about it, and that's why I think, Baker, when he was asked earlier in training camp, what was the biggest difference from, the first half of the season, the second half, and he said, I stopped predetermining where I was going with the ball, and I just kind of let, the offense and their defensive call dictate where the ball went. And when you have that many guys that he's comfortable with, the ball can go anywhere on any play. And I think that, when he's in that point guard role, he is so effective. And even as a drop back passer, plus gives you the opportunity to go 5 wide, and you're going to have mismatches somewhere on the field. Other teams aren't going to be able to keep up with, and match our personnel. And so I think that's a great thing, the emergence of DPJ. And you mentioned Hollywood continues to play great, and we know that rapport that's there. But these tight ends, Kareem has looked great all camp long. Nick Chubb has looked great. You even got a guy like Felton. It just the number, the abundance, the abundanza of talent and options, but that Baker is already comfortable with is really kind of a stunning thing that I'm glad you brought up, because everybody's talking about the defense because that's the focus, right? That's the new. But this offense and that continuity, while we've talked about it as a theory, what you just highlighted right there, the number of weapons that he can throw the ball to and has rapport with and feels comfortable with, it's probably one of the bigger numbers around the NFL, honestly.
Yeah, and that's what's so great about having the tight ends that they do. I mean, tight ends, the reason you use tight ends in the NFL is gives you opportunity to create mismatches. You look at the running game that the Browns have been able to feature this year with Chubb and Hunt, that offensive line, and then you've got two tight ends. I mean, if you're a defense, you're going to have to play that a certain way. But for the Browns, that could be a passing formation for them, or passing personnel, because of what their tight ends can do, because of what a guy like Kareem Hunt can do, maybe Felton, what he can do eventually. And their receivers are good blockers too. So, I mean, just the unpredictability of, no matter what personnel they have out there, what formation they're in, good luck guessing whether they're going to run it or pass it. And on top of all of that, we're talking about one of the, 2 or 3 most proficient running games in the NFL. And then, a passing game that gets overlooked, I think, but has a chance to be, top 10 as well. So, yeah, I mean, they were 6th in efficiency in offense last year, and they were kind of terrible at times the first 6-7 weeks of the season.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this has a chance to easily be a top 5 offense in terms of efficiency, which I think is the best metric for measuring how good an offense actually is.
Well, no, you're right about that. Talking with Jake Trotter from ESPN. And, Jake, that's what makes this exciting, is that if this defense with all these new pieces can be good or even great, and we've seen the speed flash. One of the guys that we hadn't seen much of, but we got to see, I thought yesterday, was all over the field, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah amongst them. Did he catch your eye yesterday, number 28? And then, what are you looking for from this D against Jacksonville? Because, again, I wonder, are we putting any of the top-line guys out there, or are we going to, because we need these guys to have some chemistry in a game situation prior to facing Mahomes and the Chiefs?
Yeah, we don't really have any precedent, right? Because
None.
There was no preseason last year, and then, 2019 was a completely different regime. I mean, I know in 2019, it was like, a series here or there with the main guys, and then you kind of moved on to the second team and then, the third team. So I don't know. I mean, Stefanski said they've been talking a lot about, how they're going to go about these preseason games, but we really haven't gotten a, definitive outlook of what it's going to look like in terms of personnel. But yeah, I mean, I've said it, like Clowney might have 100 sacks in training camp if you're allowed to hit the quarterback. And so, and he's going up against Jack Conklin too. He's not going up against Beau Bishop. So
Right.
I wonder what that's going to look like if they, unleash him for a couple series. That'd be exciting to see. Maybe you can get after Trevor Lawrence a little bit. But yeah, I mean, they've done some good on good. They've done some team stuff, but it's just different when you're playing another team. So some of these developments that we've seen, whether it's, DPJ, whether it's Clowney, John Johnson at safety, whatever, JOK, as you mentioned, with the speed that he flashed yesterday at the scrimmage, you just get a better sense of the transferability of it when they're playing an actual team that's different than your own.
Did you get any sense, Jake, of when we're going to see Grant Delpit? Because he's the one guy, that we just really haven't gotten to see much of. Same with Anthony. I think Anthony Schwartz would be on the offensive side, a guy that we haven't gotten to see much of that we were excited to see. But, it feels to me like Grant's going to need to get some time out there on the field before he can get ready for, the regular season. And he's somebody that every time you see him, he looks great. You just want to see more of him. Any sense on if this is a week where Grant Delpit actually gets back into the mix?
Yeah, I mean, they have a little bit of a hamstring epidemic right now with guys like Delpit, Schwartz, you mentioned Ronnie Harrison is another, Anthony Walker has the knee. I mean, they have a lot of, as good as they've looked at times defensively, I mean, they're missing, 3, 4, 5 really key guys, or have missed, a good chunk of the rotation or even starters that are going to be back there. I don't know. With hamstrings, they're a little bit tricky. They take a little bit of time to come back from. You don't want to re-aggravate something like that. It's just going to keep you out longer. I mean, they're not playing any games right now, so there's no need to risk that. But yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see, when they finally get all 3 safeties out there again with Delpit, Harrison, and Johnson, what that looks like, because I think that really has a chance to be a strength of the team.
It certainly does, and that's what's exciting, all the kind of versatility of things that are able to be employed by defensive coordinator Joe Woods, who I think did a great job, last year when he did not necessarily have the personnel to run his defense. Now he will. I think that's a big, big storyline. Jake, were you down on the field for the pressers yesterday?
I was.
What was kind of your reaction? I thought, Baker coming out, we're going to play that in the next segment, but Baker coming out and saying, I don't give a damn about my contract. I'm here to win football games. I've watched the video many times. What was kind of the feeling down there when you heard that, and Baker better than anybody? What was he saying there?
Yeah, I think Baker is very comfortable, doubling down on himself. And so I think, if he was going to talk candidly about it, I think he has. I think he really feels the way, that he's been talking. But listen, if the extension doesn't work out this year, or talks linger into the season, like, he feels very comfortable with the idea that he's going to get paid next year because he's going to have a great season and they're going to win a lot of games. So I don't think, I think he's getting annoyed having to talk about it a lot because. Yep. It is storyline. It's everybody, it's our job in the media to ask those questions when they're relevant. And Josh Allen, from the same quarterback class, signed in $258 million deal? Is that what it was? $43 million a year. That's relevant. But I don't think it's going to affect Baker in the way he plays this season, which is what Browns fans care about, because, they can still do this extension next year if they want to. It's not like, with Nick Chubb, for example, if you don't get it done, all of a sudden you risk losing him. Baker's here to stay, and I don't think this is a question. I know some people, whether Baker as their franchise quarterback. I think it's just a question of making the money work. And, committing $40 million a year to one player, that's a big investment. And not something that's done, quickly or lightly. So again, I don't think that this has anything to do with, Baker's long-term viability as the quarterback in Cleveland. Sure. I just think these things take a little bit of time. And Lamar Jackson won an MVP, for crying out loud.
Yep.
And still doesn't have a deal done. It's just, Dak Prescott, it was like 3 off seasons before they got a deal done. These things just take a lot of time. And I think Baker's taken the right, outlook on it and not getting stressed out about it because, he can't really control it. And it doesn't do a lot of good to stress out about things that you cannot control.
That's right. And Baker seems laser focused on just doing what he has to do for this football team to win. And I think that's the goal of everybody in this building. Jake, it is always a pleasure. Covered a lot of good ground right there. Enjoy the rest of your media day off, and we will see you back out here on campus, the Cross Country Mortgage campus in Berea tomorrow.
Sounds good. Bring out some boards and bags sometimes, and we'll crank it up.
Oh, boy, Gibby. I feel like that's right in your wheelhouse.
He's right around the corner.
Yes. Let's go. I love it. The great Jake Trotter. Make sure you guys follow him on Twitter. When we come back, we'll hear from Baker Mayfield, what he had to say on the field after the Orange and Browns practice. That's coming up next. Oh boy, what a treat. Would you look at this beautiful glass that I am holding? Cleveland Browns 75th anniversary logo, the striping, it's beautiful. Oh, I think it's going to really hold a nice frosty beverage for you, and the only way to get
zero in on that.
Huh? Yeah, come on in, Gibby. Use your camera. Oh, there it is. The Browns bundle is back at Buffalo Wild Wings for the 2021 season. They'll be launching this Saturday, August the 14th at participating Ohio Buffalo Wild Wings locations during the 2021 season. With the purchase of the Browns bundle, fans can get a limited edition collectible Cleveland Browns glass. This is one of 3, which we will show you guys. The $14.99 Browns bundle includes 6 pieces of wings, boneless or traditional, fries, and this commemorative glass. This season's collection honors the Browns' 75th anniversary. This one's got the 75th anniversary logo. There's a throwback brownie glass and then a 1946 patch logo as well. We'll show you all the glasses, one a day here the next couple of days leading up to this. Again, the Browns bundle's back this Saturday, August the 14th. Let's hear now from Baker Mayfield, who spoke with the media after yesterday's Orange and Browns practice.
Baker,
You're down.
coming up. What do you think you've gotten done, and where do you think you need to get better?
Yeah, we've gotten better as the days go on. I think we're learning, what we're trying to expand on offensively. We're doing a better job of taking care of the ball. I think situationally today we did some 2-minute stuff. I got to be a lot better on that. So as this camp goes on, I think we need to continue to stress situational importance of third downs, 2 minutes, taking care of the ball. Just keep emphasizing everything that we need to as the year goes on.
You really finding yourself in the room with Donovan?
Yeah, no, Donovan and I, we worked quite a bit this offseason, and he looks great. It's hats off to him. I think he's put in the work. He looks unbelievable right now. He's running faster. Like I said last year, he's a smart guy that he can play a lot of different positions. He doesn't just learn one receiver position. He learns our whole system, and he's a good player for us.
Without getting into specifics, just what was Tony Dungy's overall message when he spoke with you guys after practice?
Back in 15.
Not about talent or wanting it more, because everybody has talent in this level. Everybody wants to win it all, but it's about outworking and doing your job at the highest level possible, and doing that as a team and coming together.
You're up.
That's Baker Mayfield, and Donovan Peoples-Jones has been the talk of camp, and Baker saying some good things, some things I want to continue to work on, be sharper in some of those situations, and that's the emphasis. We're going to see more situational work as we get ready for the Browns and the Jaguars, the preseason opener this Saturday down in Jacksonville. And we told you, we've had a lot of people from the national standpoint come through this town, come to the Cross Country Mortgage campus to check out the Cleveland Browns. One of them was Pat Kerwin, former NFL GM, current host of Moving the Chains on SiriusXM NFL Radio, and we're going to hear from him next, his thoughts about this roster and what it could mean for this Cleveland Browns team in the 2021 season. That's coming up when Cleveland Browns Daily returns. I see some of my Browns Live crew walking in right now, Baco and Connor. And if you missed Browns Live, listen, you can get it at our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Browns. But Browns Live is presented by Cross Country Mortgage throughout the 2021 season. I love how in this read it says Zegura and Ken Carman. I've made it to one name status, which I guess is good, but I'm the one reading it, so it's very funny for me to say Zegura and Ken
Periodically,
Carman.
I throw in just a Z, myself.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll mix it up for you just to keep
I
you
like
on your
it.
I want to see
like
if you
it.
Ron Burgundy it.
Yes.
And you did. Well done.
Oh, well, I did it on purpose. I'm not going to Ron Burgundy the next thing because I want people to know who I actually interviewed.
Who did you interview?
Pat Kerwin,
Oh.
whose name
Here
does
with
not
the
appear
legend.
anywhere
You're down.
on this
Pat
thing.
Kerwin and Pat out here today at Browns camp. What do you make of this off season and now getting to see it out on the field?
Yeah, well, first off, it's a nice deep roster. There's a bunch of guys that I like. I'm always looking for, can you survive injuries? I ask the kind of GM questions that always scared me all the time. So Higgins, Peoples-Jones, Kareem Hunt, Hubbard, Smith, Wilson, Harrison, Greedy Williams when he's healthy. Yes, you can survive them. So you cleared the deck on that issue. And then the revamping of the defense, I like a lot of things. I like the back seven, really. And up front, we'll just see if the tackles can hold up and be what they're supposed to be.
Yeah, when you look at this team running it back on offense, in your experience, have you seen the ability to do this? I know Tampa's doing something similar this year, but 20 of your 22 guys from offense last year are back. Every coach is back. It's pretty unique.
It's awesome, and really Baker deserved that. It wasn't done for him, but he's the lucky recipient of that because he's now going to duplicate an offense for the first time in his career, which is outstanding. And he's a bright guy he's a perfectionist. I've been around him a lot. He just wants to be great. And I think this is a stepping stone to being great. They're loaded at tight end. You're loaded at wide receiver. You might actually have a receiver to give here. I'll go through what you keep usually. You keep 5 wide receivers. Well, there's more than 5 here. Maybe some trade bait.
And they're always thinking like a GM, Pat, and I remember talking to you at the Combine. You knew Kevin Stefanski, and you said, he's going to be pretty good. Well, he went out there and won the Coach of the Year in his first year. What do you think of kind of what he's done and just really the tone he set? You see the efficiency, the crispness out there, no wasted seconds, and that leadership, that calmness.
It comes because, Kevin's personality is low-key, number one, and he's not going to scream and yell, but they trust him. He spent a lot of time with these players when he first got here one-on-one, so they got to know each other. And then he understands how to treat each guy individually, along with a team concept. But there's a lot of competition. So at the end of the day, why is practice looking good? Because I see competition at a lot of places. And even the great starters on the offensive line realize that Billy Callahan's going to train the guys behind him. So really, it's the perfect scenario. I was in Buffalo yesterday. They're a lot like you. They have a very good football team. They have depth. They have a quarterback. So you are the two teams everyone's talking about that are excited to see the future. And both head coaches, in my opinion, know how to suppress the enthusiasm.
Yeah, they certainly do, and that's kind of the thing. We're going to be about that work here, and that's kind of the ethos. Nick Chubb embodies that for this organization. He signed a long-term extension earlier this week. What did you think of that deal that really seems on the surface to be a win for the player but also a win for the organization?
He's a fantastic, underrated player. He's no longer underrated. Contracts tell me how rated they are, and he's worth every dime. And he's backed up by Kareem Hunt and Johnson, Johnson, because there's 3 guys that can run the football, and this is an offense that wants to run the football. You got 2 fullbacks that can play. You'll probably put one on the practice squad, the second kid, but you're going to get into 22 personnel and pound it. You're going to get into 21 personnel and run it. You got to play action pass quarterback. It's really the best of both worlds. And Chubb, to me, when you really need a big play, the guy shows up.
Yes, he does, and did that all year long for the Browns. I'll leave you with this one, Pat. We always appreciate the time. You talk about the depth of this roster. For the first time in a long time for the Browns, they don't need a rookie to contribute now. They've got a couple who certainly can, though. Greg Newsome, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. What did you think of the draft class and how they can fit in?
Once a team gets to this depth, you start having a hard time getting rookies to start. Now, maybe the linebacker starts, a Notre Dame kid, but I don't think so. I think that you have plenty of good players where the rookies are going to get a chance to develop, and maybe in November when the injuries creep into it, they're ready to go. It's really what everyone wants. People used to say that the Patriots had bad drafts. I kept saying, In the Brady era, it was hard to make the team. They're all going to make the team, and they'll be asked later in the year to go out and be part of this thing, and I think that's the perfect way for a rookie to come in.
It is, and it's kind of an exciting thing because it used to be you'd come out to this camp, you'd say, well, who's the undrafted free agent that's going to emerge and start for your team? And now you go through this depth, and it's going to be tough even for some of these draft picks to make this football team.
Yeah, college free agents, like I always look to see, you'd love to get a couple of them to be on your team, 5 or 6.
30.
2 or 3 playing a lot because those salaries offset the multimillionaires. And in time, you're going to be paying a lot of good players a lot of money. So you got to keep looking for those kind of guys. And I think your GM knows that. And your coach knows it for sure. I think I counted 5 college free agents on the offense. They're lucky to hear. Now, with the expanded practice squad, you can keep them around.
Absolutely. Pat, always a pleasure. Appreciate the time. Enjoy the Hall of Fame festivities this weekend.
I will do that, my man.
You're up.
All right, that was my chat with Pat Kerwin from Saturday in Berea. And then he went to the Hall of Fame, and I got a chance on Saturday to go to the Hall of Fame as well and see the induction speeches and partake in some of the festivities as a guest of my good friend, my fraternity brother, Jay Hardington, who was a part of Edgerrin James's entourage, I would call it, for his induction. And it was really cool. I'd never been there. It was a really neat thing to see the speeches and see just kind of the support that a guy like Edgerrin James had from his teammates who showed up, from college, from the U, from high school, his family, everybody there to celebrate him and all of the players who were inducted. It was the 2-class induction, 2020 on Saturday, 2021 last night. But it was pretty cool, and I wanted to throw this out there because this is something that's fascinated me since that night. So Edge, obviously very good player, clearly well-liked around league circles. I wonder if there has ever been a party that would have produced as competitive a football team as this one. And, we could get into the offensive linemen that were there as well, Jeff Saturday, but I didn't know all of those guys just on site. But this is who I knew in terms of attendance on site. Here's the roster of people that were at Edge's party. Quarterbacks, Peyton Manning and Bernie Kosar. Actually, I should start with head coach. Head coach Tony Dungy, Hall of Famer.
Yeah, don't leave him out.
Quarterbacks, Peyton Manning and Bernie Kosar. Running backs, Marshall Faulk, Edgerrin James, and Clinton Portis. Your receivers, Michael Irvin, Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne, Santana Moss. Brandon Stokely was also in attendance. Tight end, Dallas Clark. And then listen to the guys that showed up for the defensive side. D-line, Too Tall Jones, Warren Sapp, John Randall, Bruce Smith, Dwight Freeney. Ray Lewis was there for the linebackers. And then listen to this secondary. Champ Bailey, Ty Law, Charles Woodson, Ed Reed.
That's a crazy guest list.
Insane.
Yeah, because a lot of those parties didn't start till after midnight, if I recall correctly.
You would not be wrong about that, and these people were all there, which is just it's wild. And Edge had something really cool. He had an old, it looks like a classic Impala from the 60s that he had wrapped in the Hall of Fame wrapping. Gold rims, and then the seats kind of like this, like a almost like a gold leather. And he had all of the Hall of Famers from his class. Everybody was there from the 2020, 2021 classes, and then all the people who came to the party, Irvin and Ray Lewis, who were in different years, Bruce Smith, all signed it. So the back seat of this custom Impala is signed by all the Hall of Famers.
That doesn't suck.
No, it was awesome, and it was an awesome time. I thought his speech was great.
What was the best food served on site?
Oh, they had it all. They had the full, the chilled bar. They had somebody shucking oysters live there. You had the shrimp cocktail, the king crab cocktail, some coconut shrimp, sushi station, and then outside carved ribeye, carved tenderloin.
Nice.
It was bananas. The food was the whole thing was beyond first class, and it was awesome. It gave me some ideas. I told it was at Gervasi Vineyards, or Gervasi, if I said Gervasi or Gervasi.
I think it's Vasey.
Okay, Gervasi Vineyard, which was an incredible location. Wrong. I told the Hoff, I said, Hoff, I did some advanced scouting for you. I said, just call him and say I want the Edge package. That's what I would like. So it was really cool. His speech was very good, and I thought very powerful. And then I saw Peyton's speech last night and watched that thing in its entirety. I mean, he seems like just a pretty tremendous human being. It started off with some roasting, and then it was awesome.
Did you see Eli's shot at him earlier in the day?
No, what did Eli say?
Oh, hold on. Let me look it up. I feel like, though, Peyton is destined for something greater than commissioner. Everybody's like, he should be the next NFL commissioner. I feel like you might be destined for something bigger than that.
What would in football, in the world of football, what would be bigger than that?
I mean, the political ring.
Oh, you think he's going to be like the next, like a president someday?
I don't know.
I mean,
he could.
I think he could do anything he wants, but I felt like his speech was so impassioned about football and ensuring the legacy of football and that it lives on. I mean, I think he would be. I mean, Roger Goodell's done an excellent job. Obviously, look at the growth of the league, but I think Peyton could be an incredible commissioner if he ever wanted to do that. I mean,
I think the man can do anything that he wants to do.
I think that's pretty fair.
I think he's very happy doing what he's doing currently.
Yeah.
Picking and choosing. From Eli Manning yesterday, 22 hours ago.
Yeah.
Peyton is not the only Manning to win an award today. Abby and I won the consolation bracket of the B League in mixed doubles tennis. This day just became even more special for the Manning family. Don't tell Pate, I don't want to take anything away from his big day.
Eli is so funny.
He's pretty great.
He's really good on social media. Yeah, he's very good at it. And together, they're great comedians, and I'm very excited for their Monday night broadcasts or whatever they are, their Monday night hangouts and talking ball. I think it's going to be a pretty cool thing. So congrats to the whole class. It was very special, and it was a neat thing to see, a neat thing to be a part of. All right, final thoughts, wrap up. Guess what that means? So much more to come on Cleveland Browns Daily. Off today, back to work tomorrow. 3 straight days of training camp practices before the team boards a plane and heads to Jacksonville for the first business trip of the season, Gibby. The Browns and the Jags this Saturday night, the preseason opener. We got 16 games on the docket this week. Every team in action. The preseason is here.
The biggest question, do I go Banana Grande on Friday for the business trip?
I think,
or is that for like the
I think that's September the 12th, brother. You don't bust out Banana Grande for the preseason. Banana Grande that's regular season. That's big. It's go time.
But it's like a big deal. We haven't traveled in a year.
I know, but this is just a warm up. This is a dress rehearsal. That's not. We don't want to go. Listen, we're not trying to win the Super Bowl in August, Gibbe. Banana Grande, September 12th. Sure.
Okay.
But that's a big time thing. That'll be brought back in February. As we go here. All right, big thanks to Jake Trotter and Charles Robinson for joining us. The Next Level is next tomorrow, live at training camp, myself and Jim Donovan. Thanks for listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on ESPN Cleveland.